and welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. I'm Katya, and I have back with me my very special mentor, Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Namaste, Katya. Yeah. Good to be back again.
Thank you so much. Today's video, we're going to talk about Rahu through the Nakshatras. And at the very end, we're going to talk about the lunar eclipse that's happening conjunct Rahu tomorrow. The moon will be in Taurus, Rohini, conjunct Rahu, where it is right now. So we have a lunar eclipse we will talk about at the end. So thank you very much for coming back.
Yeah, great. Good to be back again, Katya. Let's see. So today we'll actually talk about Rahu and understanding Rahu through its nakshatras also. So I just want to give like a brief kind of a intro to the nakshatras ruled by Rahu. I want to help to think about Rahu through different kind of ways. In my opinion, you could actually understand Rahu a lot through the nakshatras ruled by Rahu in the Vimshatri Rasha system. That's something I can really recommend. Now, I just want to demonstrate that, and again, just the same logic which I've been doing through the other planets. We'll kind of examine one karaka. We'll try to understand that particular item through the nakshatras linked with that particular planet and so forth. So it's an interesting kind of thing. I thought this was kind of an interesting kind of topic also for Rahu. So it'll be interesting to see what we discuss and so forth also. Now let's see. So I'm started sharing my screen. So again, a big thing with regard to Rahu and its nakshatras is identifying the nakshatras ruled by Rahu. Here, the nakshatras ruled by Rahu is Ardra, Swati, and Satabhisha. That's what I've highlighted here in gray. I marked that down in the charts as well. Now remember that Rahu is also actually supposed to be the co-lord of Aquarius. Now this depends upon the astrological school you belong to. Some schools they don't believe Rahu has their own sign or has its own sign. Most of them believe Rahu co-lords Aquarius along with Saturn. Some believe Rahu is also the co-lord of Virgo also. So I mean there are all schools of thought. Is the co-lord of Virgo as well. Rahu rules Virgo as well. So I believe Pandit Sanjay Rath's tradition also considers that as well. Yeah. Along with Aquarius, so it's good, it's fine. There are different traditions out there and so forth. And Rahu's exaltation, debilitation, and Multrikon is also controversial. In the sense there are different schools of thought with regard to that as well, whether Rahu is getting exalted, whether Rahu is getting debilitated, or whether Rahu can be ascribed even a Multrikon nakshatra or a sign also. There are different schools of thought of that. So here I've actually kind of shared what I've seen in Parashara, in Parashara Horasastra and so forth. In which Rahu is considered to be debilitated in Scorpio at 20 degrees. It's considered to be exalted in Taurus at 20 degrees of Taurus. The corresponding nakshatras are Jyeshta in Scorpio and Rohini in Taurus respectively. And finally, Rahu's Multrikon sign is considered to be Cancer. Cancer is interesting and so forth. Now, again, there are many schools of thought here. Many people consider Rahu as being exalted in Virgo, for instance, and Ketu as being, I think Rahu is exalted in Gemini versus Ketu being exalted in Sagittarius.
Yeah, I've heard that.
There is many schools of thought on that front. I think all that is fine. They're just different schools of thought. They have their own ways of working with the nodes also correspondingly. And they have adapted the entire system of astrology accordingly also. And that's completely fine as well. So let's see, now let's begin to understand Rahu nakshatras a little bit more. Now remember the three nakshatras, Ardra, Swati, and Satabhisha are kind of interesting nakshatras because they actually fall in the middle of the air signs. That's the first thing you can notice. Ardra is actually falling in Gemini, Swati is falling in Libra, and Satabhisha is falling in Aquarius. All three are air signs also. Now that means that Rahu is a very airy planet. So that's one thing that one needs to understand. Now, if you have excessive Rahu, you could be like high out there, not grounded, and so forth. And you'll see that people who tend to get high are naturally having strong Rahu kind of thing going on also. It's one of those things with Rahu also. Usually, Rahu is the OCD planet. Rahu is a planet that makes you go OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, right? That kind of thing is a Rahu thing, to be frank. All these three nakshatras could also activate that very strongly. That's also the thing which you can see. Now, Rahu is the planet ruling the nakshatras falling in the karma houses also. So Rahu actually indicates the unfulfilled desires also. Now, Gemini is the sign which is a natural third house, which is our own personal desires, our own egoic identification, and so forth. That is one thing. Swati is the unfulfilled desires with regard to relationships or the community kind of event. And 11th house of gains is your unfulfilled desires from the universe or with the world, with the greater world, with the community, and so forth also. That is also one more thing that's happening, which is where Satabhisha Nakshatra is also falling and so forth also. Now, like I said, here I mentioned Rahu. Here I have only highlighted the Rahu's VIP Nakshatra as I'm calling it. Rahu being exalted in Rohini is what I have here. Rahu's being debilitated in Jyeshta is what I have here. And Rahu's having his Mool Trikona in Cancer. Now, Jyeshta Nakshatra can be
which nakshatra in Cancer is?
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, the entire sign of Cancer is considered to be the Mool Trikona of Rahu in this particular school of thought. Now, again, like I said, there are different schools of thought. There are schools of thought out there. I read books where they actually consider Rahu's Mool Trikona falling in Leo as well. I mean, it comes down to the astrological tradition you belongs to as far as Rahu is concerned. Now, I believe I mentioned in one of the videos I was in that this difference of this school of thought is actually coming down to the actual energies that the traditions is actually maintaining. For instance, there is an actually very interesting book on Rahu and Ketu by Prashant Trivedi, in which he actually mentions Rahu and Ketu is actually linked with the Kundalini energy. Now, he believes that Rahu cannot be exalted, and Rahu doesn't have a sign of exaltation. Rahu doesn't have a sign of debilitation as well. Now, he says that astrologers for whom wealth was more important, for those people, they consider Rahu as being exalted in Taurus, the natural second house of the zodiac, which is the natural second house of money and so forth. Now, his counter argument was that for astrologers for whom occult knowledge is more important, they would consider Rahu as being exalted in the natural 8th house of the zodiac, which is Scorpio and so forth. And of course, that's something that's also possible. I mean, other schools of thought or in lands where other aspects of life was considered to be important. So for instance, say a land where healing was considered to be important, Rahu might be considered has been exalted in Virgo also. Now that's one thing. Now in lands where Rahu was very common, like in Kerala and so forth, there are snakes everywhere. So snake is also Rahu. So it doesn't make any sense to ascribe, Rahu and Ketu as being exalted in a particular sign or so forth, because there's just too much of Rahu energies anyways there. So I believe this could be a geographical kind of thing, a cultural kind of thing, one of those kind of interaction that could have played out astrologically also. That is my thought on this matter. But in my opinion, though, it doesn't matter. You can begin to consider various schools of thought. And here, the school of thought I am actually assigning for Rahu is Rahu's exaltation point falling in Rohini Nakshatra, which is 20 degrees of Taurus. Now, Rahu is actually going to hit this exaltation point very soon. I think we'll talk about that in the eclipse and so forth.
Yeah, well, and that makes sense too, because, Rahu is the mouth and Rohini, Taurus rules the mouth. And Rohini is like the toddler that wants to taste everything. They want to put everything in their mouth, and taste it and understand it with their mouth. So to me, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's fine. That's fine as well. But again, there are schools of thought on that also, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I've actually ascribed Rohini with luxury and ascension, Jyeshta with elders and Indra, and Cancer with moon and mind and so forth also. Now that's one thing I mentioned. Again, I highlighted here there are various schools of thought about exaltation, Mool Trikona, and debilitation signs of Rahu also. Here we are going to look into Rahu through the nakshatras. Now remember, I've shown 3 nakshatras here. Now let's try to understand things that can be linked with Rahu and these nakshatras also. Now, remember the lord of Ardha Nakshatra is actually Rudra. Rudra is actually connected with the lord of the animals, wild animals. He's also the lord of the plant kingdom, and he's also connected with 7 sounds from grief. So Rudra is the one who screams. Rudra is the one who is howling. Correspondingly, you see the Ardha Nakshatra, which is linked with, actually I believe it is linked with healers, feminists, poison, foreign languages, unexpected events, and howler. You're beginning to see that. People with Ardha Nakshatra natures are much more likely to howl or scream at you because they have that Shiva's anger kind of thing going on.
Right.
You're beginning to see that also. It is one of those things. Usually I've seen people with Ardha Nakshatra can also become very strong feminists also. In fact, they can also be powerful healers also at the same time. Because Rudra is supposed to carry a medicine.
If someone has a wild outburst all of a sudden and their personality flips on you, That's also very Gemini as well.
Exactly, yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
Ardra is the
I know
nakshatra
somebody
falling
like
in the
that.
heart of Gemini. Yeah, so exactly that. So you can see that, you can see that kind of thing
Oh, yeah.
already playing out with Ardha Nakshatra. But correspondingly, interestingly, look at the karkas, look at the things you would actually associate with Ardra or Rudra. Healers can be Rahu, like feminism or social justice warriors can be Rahu. Poison is also Rahu. Foreign languages, things with foreign is also Rahu, because remember Ardra is falling in Gemini, which is a natural third house of communication or languages also. Unexpected events can also be Rahu, which is also Ardra. Howler can also be Rahu, things that are screaming, things that are amplified, and so forth also. Now, with Swati Nakshatra, that is associated with the deity Vayu, who is the god of wind, air, and considered to be the musician head, the head of the composer of the orchestra, right? Now, Swati is definitely a philosophical sign. It is also linked with weather storms. It is also linked with prana. In fact, like what I was saying, the prana Vayu, the breath of air which you're breathing, that can be actually Swati as well. That is one direct thing. Of course, Swati is also linked with Hatha Yoga, or your own health and so forth. Women's issues, again, feminism, social justice warriors you begin to see. Remember, Swati is a nakshatra falling in a natural seventh house, which can also indicate foreign language and foreign trade also. That's also seventh house. Setting sun also. So, in fact, Swati is a nakshatra associated with the setting sun, which is also indicating the fall and rise of empire also. So, Rahu can be an entire empire. That's also one more thing you can see. An entire empire rising, an entire empire drowning also. Setting also, you can definitely associate that with Rahu. Finally, the third nakshatra is that of Satabhisha. Satabhisha nakshatra is actually linked with the god of the cosmic ocean, who is Varuna. He's also the god of night and fate. He's the god of law. He's the dawn of the nakshatra devatas, the underworld dawn of soul. He's also the healer. He's also the waters up and down also. Now, usually Satabhisha nakshatra is also linked with ninth lord, the foreign land. It's also healers, 6,000 more. Now, interestingly, it is falling in the 11th house of the natural zodiac, which is actually making it very interesting, because 11th house is the sixth from the sixth. So that makes it very much linked with the healing kind of profession. Satabhisha also linked with occult side of things, also poisons also. Satabhisha can also be linked with earthquake. Now, all these are, what I've listed here are all basic Rahu kind of things. Now, you can see I was simply extrapolating what the Nakshatra Devata could mean, Nakshatra deity could mean, and so forth. And you are beginning to see the functions of Rahu coming out. That's what we were seeing. That's what I wanted to highlight. Now, in simpler terms, you can begin to think of these deities in this way. Now, say of Rudra, who is a god of storm. This is the actual storm god. This is the actual storm that is coming your way. Okay, the storm, the clouds are up in the air and so forth. Now, right, you have the clouds up in the sky. You need the winds, right, which is provided by Vayu. Vayu is the god of wind. Now, what does he do? He starts the winds of the storm. The storm is accompanied by winds. Now it becomes a torrential rain. It's like a cyclone waiting to happen, all that. Typhoon waiting to happen, all that. Now, the wind has come, the storm, the clouds have come. The final raindrop, that is actually going to be Varuna, who is the god of the ocean. Now, that's actually the 100 healers, the 100 drops of rain that is actually coming from the sky. So, actually, Varuna is actually linked with the rain also. That's exactly what you have. So, you can see how raindrops of Rudra, the storm of Rudra, is actually getting the boost from the winds of Vayu, and then finally it is manifesting as the rainfall as Varuna also. So that is a way to think about these also. So here you can actually associate Rahu with rainwater also. Anytime it's raining, it's supposed to be very powerful healing time. In fact, meditations are much more powerful when it's raining. Some people actually meditate under the rainwater. Some people actually collect or gather the rainwater and then they meditate upon that. There's all kinds of things you can do with rainwater. Rainwater is very, very healing. In fact, the plants that grow in rainwater is much more superior to plants that grow in like natural tap water and stuff like that. So there's something special about rainwater also. That's something very, very powerful. So again, but here's one interesting thing, right? So you can see this link between rain and the Rahu rule nakshatra. And Rahu is also rain. When you get Rahu, Dasha is active, money can come from many different sources. That's exactly like, it's almost like rain is coming for you in your bank account. Literally, that's what's actually playing. Now here, one interesting thing I thought, as I was thinking about what to present, is actually this particular fact, the fact that we are all drinking coffee, right? Actually, remember coffee is also something that is brown in color, and coffee, believe it or not, is actually linked with Rahu.
Wow.
Coffee is actually Rahu. It is also brown, because remember, coffee is like a stimulant. You drink the coffee and then you're up, right?
Yeah,
then
it's very
actually
rajasic, but sometimes we need a little bit of excitement,
Yeah, yeah,
You know, we got to have a little bit of everything. So
yeah. It's
I
fine.
believe
It's fine.
modesty and everything.
Yeah, exactly that. But remember that still coffee is still out. But now how would coffee as a karaka play out through the nakshatra, right? So that's something I was thinking about. It's very interesting to think about and so forth. How exactly are nakshatras actually interacting with the coffee and so forth. Now
Wow.
again, we go through the same set of deities and so forth. So now Rudra is actually the storm god. Now, interestingly, and you have the Vayu, which is the wind god, and Satyabhisha, which is linked with Varuna, the god of the ocean, and so forth. Now, how could you link with coffee with these nakshatras also, right? Now, think about Rudra as actually being linked with the storm or the lands where rainfall is happening, where the coffee beans actually grow. So you can't grow coffee beans everywhere. It doesn't
Right.
grow everywhere. So it only
Right.
grows in certain regions where the rains are very constant. The lands which is carrying Rudra's blessing, where the lands where rain is actually happening. And that's exactly what happened. Coffee beans actually grow only in these kind of places. And then once you get the coffee beans, you actually have to roast them, which is actually a windy kind of thing. You actually have to roast it out and so forth, right? And once you get a dried coffee beans, only then do you actually begin to buy it from the counter and so forth. Now, interestingly, what happens is that once you start getting coffee and so forth, now you get a cafe where a lot of people gather and so forth. Now, cafes can be actually linked with Satyabhisha Nakshatra, in my opinion, because there is a lot of gathering here. Large people are gathering and they're all drinking coffee and having a breakfast and so forth. Also.
Well, and also coffee can be very addicting, and Shatabishak is the nakshatra of addictions.
Yeah, exactly that. So you could see that also. You can see Rahu is also addiction. You can see that also clearly. But here, what interestingly I wanted to show is that you started off with the storm god Rudra of Ardra. The coffee beans god grew up there. Now you roast it with the Vayu Swati. And then eventually you actually use it in a large grove, which is like a cafe-like setting, which is Varuna, which is Satyabhisha also. And now you are dealing with 100 healers now. And in fact, coffee shops are very powerful places of intellectual exploration and so a lot of intellectual activities do happen there. People go to the coffee shop and just get their work done, things like that. Definitely
Oh,
that kind of
yeah.
thing
I mean, in Egypt, going to the cafe, you'll see old men sitting in the cafe all day, apparently doing nothing, but they're not doing nothing. It's a kind of
Yeah,
meditation, to smoke your hookah, have your coffee or tea, and meditate and watch the world go by. And these men will sit there all day. And one of my friends that danced there, she said, I never understood how can they just sit there? We in the West are go, 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 go,
yeah.
but
So
there their way of being sattvic is
yeah,
to sit around and drink coffee and smoke
yeah,
hookah and kind of relax and chill,
yeah. It is true. So interestingly, you can see Satyabhisha is also nakshatra falling in a Saturn sign. So usually it's old men drinking coffee, right? That could be also be Satyabhisha nakshatra. That's also easily that. So no doubt about that. But yeah, but again, what have we done here? We looked at one item linked with Rahu, which is coffee. We try to link that coffee and see its progress through the Rahu Nakshatras and see actually how it's directly linked with the Rahu Nakshatras also. That's what we have done here. So it's definitely a new way of understanding Rahu, and it's a new way to understand all the items linked with the planets also. That's the other thing that I'm interested in. Now, there are a couple more slides. I just want to leave these 2 points here. Remember that Rahu can also represent hackers. That's one more thing. So you have the Mr. Robot TV show in which shows that our democracy has been hacked, and it's a very interesting, cool show, which is all about a central Rahu-like character and so on. Now, interestingly, you begin to see that the Mr. Robot guy is actually wearing a hoodie, right? You see, and then remember, Rahu is also associated with Anonymous, right? The large groups and so forth. That's also Anonymous, one of the hackers in group and so forth. Now, what is Anonymous? What is the symbology? How do you understand it's Anonymous? It's a mask. Mask is also Rahu. You only see the head. Clearly that's the Rahu thing going on. So you begin to see that also.
And
Now,
what else is associated with this is the Borg on Star Trek.
oh yeah,
Yeah, the Borg is very much Rahu because it's all about group mind think, one brain controlling everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Rahu is definitely that. Now, I wanted to say that in general, if you're wearing a hoodie, now remember the cobras are the snake that is actually having a hood, right? So now if you're wearing a hoodie, you're activating a Rahu. It's as simple as that. Now I begin to see that. So people in India, Rahu, they are much more likely to wear hoodie. They want that hood above their neck, above their head, and so forth. It's a simple observation I made. This is one thing I can say. Now hackers do come in many forms, and this is my last slide. There is also a group called as biohacking, in which people literally begin to hack their own bodies in whatever ways that is possible. So sometimes it's more like they put all kind of information or devices under the skin and so forth. Some people are trying to use electronic tattoos and so forth also. And of course, you have the other aspects here with people literally trying out different kind of biohacking devices and so forth. So that's also pure Rahu kind of thing at motion. So as you said, the Borg, right? So they're looking at beginnings of Borg in this day and age. So that's one thing. But here, what I have done here, right? So I demonstrated some, again, the kind of thinking I wanted to encourage is what I'm trying to do here. So I demonstrated how understanding the deities of the nakshatras literally opened you to the world of what Rahu is actually ruling and connected with. Not only that, you can pick any item linked with Rahu and see the other nakshatras of Rahu literally connected with that item also, which is what I did with coffee here, So it's an interesting thing. Now, in fact, with the coffee thing, what was interesting was that I actually saw a news article from on a TV show about an entrepreneur was trying to uplift his community using coffee. So he was trying to connect the farmers directly with through his coffee shops and so forth, trying to uplift that kind of thing. Now, usually Rahu is the planet that you need for entrepreneurship in general. But in general, eventually, when the entrepreneurship expands to the level where it's actually benefiting the community, and that's what you need for a good business, when you're actually activating the community. Now, remember, community is the 11th house of the zodiac. The natural 11th house of the zodiac is also Aquarius sign, which is where Satabhisha Nakshatra is also falling. So that's also the way to think about it. So yeah, so that's what I have for Rahu. But remember the kind of thinking here I'm actually demonstrating is kind of very important to understand. The fact that you can actually look at any Rahu item. Now, this kind of thinking you can develop with anything. Now, it's very normal for people just to look at what Rahu is doing in their chart based on Rahu's position and so forth. But what I want to encourage instead, not only look at what Rahu is doing, look at the other nakshatras ruled by Rahu and try to make that nakshatra as the asana and look at the house where Rahu is going with respect to that particular nakshatra. So you're going to see that is also going to give you results. So say you have a planet in, say you don't have a planet in Ardra, make Ardra as the asana and see how many houses away has Rahu moved away from Ardra. That will give you more clues with regard to how the Ardra Nakshatra energies are going to move.
Yeah.
Same thing you can do with Satabhisha Nakshatra and Swati Nakshatra also. And then you do have some interesting ways to identify how those Nakshatra energies will play out also. But again, when you look at one planet and then when you begin to start looking at all the Nakshatras linked with that same planet, and when you begin to analyze that in a chart, that is going to give you more insights and more layers of understanding and so forth also. But you need to start to think of it in this particular way also. So that's what I've been trying to do here also. Yeah.
Excellent. I would add that also another thing that's highly disputed are the aspects to Rahu and Ketu. 1, 5, and 9, 5 and 9, obviously. And that's a trine. And what is that? That's the same element. So if your Rahu is in Pisces, then you want to look at the other water signs and see, and those are the aspects to Rahu. I find they work.
Yeah.
I like I like using them.
Yeah, definitely. Aspects to work. In fact, there are some schools of thought with regard to the second house from Rahu having some problems because Rahu got cut in his head, right? So his neck got cut out. So some people, So sometimes they say that the second house from Rahu is also having some element of Rahu. That's one aspect you hear. Same thing is also associated with Saturn also, because they say the site of Saturn can create downfall. So the second house from Saturn is also going to have some problems in general also. That's also one more thing they say, because the site of Saturn is legendary. They say whatever side Shani looks at, he's going to bring that thing down. So that kind of thing, you can also look at it from that. And some people also say the 12th house from Saturn is also having a problem because Saturn is the planet that is limping also. So that's also an interesting kind of thing. So it's an interesting thing. Aspect definitely is having interesting thing. I would definitely agree with the 5-9 aspect. For sure. I do think they do also work. But there are schools of thought with regard to no aspects from Rahu also. Like, I mean, that's also a debatable kind of thing. It's a school of thought. What school of thought you belong to? What did your teacher teach you? Kind of thing going on. So
Right.
that's one of those
Second
things for
house
sure.
is
Yeah,
a
definitely.
Marika house. So seventh house is a Marika house. So I would say also maybe the opposite sign of Rahu would have problems as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can see wherever the opposite sign of Rahu is always going to have Ketu. That's always linked anyways. That's like default link anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
So for
K2's
sure.
there, obviously. But if you have planets sitting with K2, then it's a emphasis.
Yeah, definitely. There's a big karmic thing. Any planets in your Rahu Ketu, there's a big karmic thing to play out. No doubt about that. It's one of those things that you really have to work on. No doubt about that. Yeah.
Another thing I would add about Swati is it's kind of funny, but a lot of people, and I know this because in my Navamsha, my Lagna is Swati. And so, you know, it's associated with air and the head. And so a lot of Swati people come off as airheads.
That's funny. Yeah.
But we're not. We're just like really out there trying to figure this stuff out, you know? And people think, oh my God, she's so spaced out. No, I'm not. I'm figuring it all out. But I thought it was funny when you said, and in the musician's head, I mean, that's so interesting. That's how musicians are, you know, musicians seem so spaced out, but they're not. They're working out the melodies, you know, very multi-dimensional.
Yeah, definitely. Music is definitely a different kind of thing. In fact, there is a reason why they say the goddess of knowledge is actually carrying a musical instrument. They say music does have very high sense of intelligence with that actual aspect and so forth. It is true. So definitely, I do think that musicians is definitely carrying a different kind of intelligence for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're on a different realm. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the eclipse that's happening tomorrow. And sorry, this is getting out late, you guys, but I really wanted to get this out before the eclipse, and we had Thanksgiving, and so things kind of got messed up. But this is happening November 29th or 30th, depending where you're at. It's a penumbral, meaning it's not full. Lunar eclipse in Taurus Rohini, and this is the path that it's going to take. So you can see it's starting out around Baja, California, or, you know, Mexico, and the Baja Peninsula, and it's heading out right over Hawaii. So if you're in Hawaii, I'd say you're going to feel this pretty strongly, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And look, it's heading straight for China. So obviously, you know, Australia is going to be affected. New Zealand, you know, all of the Pacific obviously is going to be affected. But obviously, I put our chart up first, and then Canada, and it's actually happening in the same house for Canada, and then China because it's headed towards China. So, as you can see, the United States chart. I mean, not in our birth chart, but you know, at the time of the full moon, which is, I always use the time of the full moon or the new moon because the eclipse period happens over a span of, you know, a couple hours, right? And so the peak time for the eclipse is not always going to be exactly the same time as the new or full moon. And so I just take the new or full moon time because I feel like it's maybe a little bit stronger. I don't know. Maybe other people do other things, but it's happening. So the moon's in our 8th house. And what is 8th house? Transformation, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, it's death. It's, and then, you know, K2's down here in the 2nd house of speech with Mercury as well. Mercury riding with the sun. So I feel like, you know, I mean, this whole election thing, it's not over, even though we really wish it would be over. We're going to find out some deep dark, because I mean, what is an eclipse? It's a shadow point. And when they happen, they reveal to us things that were previously hidden in the shadows. And then the light comes over that shadow point and you're like, oh my God, I didn't see that before. So we're going to see things that were hidden for us, especially concerning communications. I mean, and Mercury's in the 2nd house. And then of course, at that time of the full moon, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is happening in the 4th house of the homeland. you know, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in her own sign of Libra, right on the ascendant. So we already know there's a lot of women that have now come into Congress, actually there's a lot of Republican women that got elected to Congress. And now we have a female VP elect. And so I feel like that feminine influence is really going to be brought to Washington, D.C. during this eclipse on both sides, you know, and honestly, for me, that makes me happy because I feel like the women have something different to bring to the table. And I feel like, especially with education and all of these things happening, you know, Neptune's in the 5th house at the time of the full moon. You know, Neptune in the 5th house, it's like, you kind of got to watch out for your kids. What are they doing behind your back that you're not seeing, you know? And eclipse is a shadow point. So and we already know, I mean, so many children are in therapy right now and on medication because of the quarantine. We've had a record number of suicides of kids aged, you know, 7 to 18. You know, and it's really sad. So that Neptune in the 5th really concerns me. And then of course, Mars in the 6th, what are we doing? Looking for the vaccine, health, right? And it's like this race for the cure. And there's so much, you know, debate about the vaccine and what's going on because there's different kinds from different companies. And one of them is an RNA vaccine, which actually attaches to the telomeres on your DNA. And the telomeres are what you need for telepathy. Telomeres are the end caps to your DNA. And as you age, and if you get really sick, the telomeres become frayed and weak. And if that happens, then the DNA inside the capsule spills out. So that's what you do not want. You want to keep the DNA inside. You want to keep your telomeres healthy and active. And if that vaccine is attaching itself to the telomeres, I ain't taking it. No way, man. Not taking that one. I'll take another one that's not like that. But so there's a lot of, you know, controversy about this. So that Mars in the 6th house really shows that. 7th house, house of enemies, Uranus retrograde. Well, you know, I would see this as, you know, because the new regime is coming in, that the opponent would be the old regime going out, right? And so Uranus retrograde is there in Aries, and it's a fight. You know, Trump's not going to give up. And, you know, he's independently, there's a lawyer, I forget her name, that was just on talking about
Sidney Powell, right? Sidney Powell.
Yes, thank you. Talking about all of the fraud that she's uncovering, and she's going to do it independently. And let me tell you what, I think it's a real blessing that Trump didn't get reelected, even if it is fraud, because now he's going to reveal, if it is fraud, he's going to reveal it. And what else he's going to reveal is what he knows about ET and the UFO secret space programs going on in the government. If he's not president, now he can talk about it. And our moon is in Shatubishak for the US birth chart. And Neptune is it has been there on top of there for the past, what, year, 2? Year, I think. So, I mean, it's all going to come out. And I think it's going to be a blessing that he's not reelected. Because, I mean, look, I'm a libertarian, so I kind of don't like any of what I see going on. I'm kind of really disgusted with the divide and conquer that's going on and the fighting. So, but I really feel like, you know, like I said, it's going to be a blessing. Things are going to come out, and now things will calm down that he's not in charge, you know, because Biden, I respect him, but he's boring. I'm sorry. That man is a boring speaker, okay? And Kamala, she whines, you know? She's got this real upper nasal whine going. If I have to listen to them for the next 4 years, I mean, I'm just going to turn off the TV, you know? At least Trump is entertaining. Oh, God. Talk about Rahu. That man is like Rahu personified. but he divides everyone. So it's probably good that he won't be in charge because people won't be fighting as much, you know. And then Canada is going to be the same thing. China, well, this is happening in their first house. So what do you think that's going to be? I think that's going to be, you know, the rooster's coming home to roost. We're going to find out exactly what's going on. Yeah, things are going to start to come out now. This is going to be the eclipse where we find out the truth. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I would say the eclipse happening on the first house. Now, eclipse, anytime any eclipses happen on the first house, there's a big change coming away, big transformation energy coming away. I do think China could be going through a transformation. I do think that's a possibility. Now, it could be that the public perception now in eclipses concerning the moon could be like an emotional upheaval of sort. Usually, there's a local government kind of thing going on. That kind of thing. Moon is controlled the local government. That kind of thing you might begin to see different. The people in general are going to have a different kind of reaction, in my opinion, with eclipses. As you correctly said, the eclipse on the ascendant of China could bring about a big way. There is a big change energy coming with the there in China for sure. In my opinion, that's there. Interestingly, you also see Sun and Mercury there. So there is some government communication thing. Could be like a communication kind of thing, something along those lines. That might be coming out also. Now, as you said in the US chart, it's happening in the eighth house. Now, eighth house is also on the hidden enemy kind of thing. Eighth house also secrets and so forth. So it's not over yet. So it might be shocking for some people. So definitely a lot of karma with you could say mothers are going through a lot of tough time right now in general. With the eclipse is happening in the moon in the eighth house. You're dealing with kids 24/7 in your home now when you had a break before, right? That kind of thing. So I do think there's this. So yeah, so I was just saying that there is this definitely challenging karma for the mothers in general, the school system in general. I would even say the moon eclipse also interestingly for the US chart. You still see the Sun Mercury in second house for the US chart. So which is also definitely some financial kind of thing about to come. Transformation with the economy, a lot of some real challenges is also about to come in that on that front also. The Uranus on the seventh is very interesting. That's a very good point, which you said about enemies and so forth. Uranus is the planet of new technology and so forth. So I do think there might be some new technologies about to come, which could literally become like enemy-like also. Like
Right.
maybe a lot of jobs could be sacrificed. That kind of thing is likely thing going on. And that's one thing I can say. Now, the one good thing, at least in the US chart, is that the ascendant is actually having Venus there. So it's almost like you will be able to coordinate it out. There'll be more interaction. There'll be more people try to work it out together, that kind of thing. Now, still the ascendant is still falling in Swati, which is also justice and so forth. So I think there'll be a lot more action on the justice front for sure. It'll be interesting to see whatever happens and so forth also. Now, I do think 8 hours eclipse could indicate big emotional change coming through secrets and scandals in general for the US. So that's something that could be true. I'm inclined to say this could also come to the finance sector also, in my opinion, because it's also happening in Taurus in general also. So could be some kind of Wall Street going through its own change, in my opinion. That kind of thing is what I expect to happen very soon also.
Cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency could be a change, yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I think US.
When Pluto goes into Capricorn.
Yeah, I think that could be very strong. I do think one interesting thing I do think is that I believe recently Florida established a $15 minimum wage kind of thing. I do think perhaps that kind of thing is also likely to happen with more states beginning to adopt more increase in income for the common people kind of thing going on. I do think that kind of thing is a trend about to expand more, in my opinion. Now it might take some time, but that could really catch some news and so forth. The other interesting thing, as you correctly pointed out, this psychological kind of thing going on. A lot of this mental health, the stigmas around mental health could really come forth. There'll be a lot more discussion happening around those themes also. So this upcoming eclipse can be really interesting as far as the US is concerned, in my opinion. It may be far more interesting in China. And definitely where there'll be a big transformation energy and all that. But I think for US and Canada, it can be much more stronger in terms of the financial things, and some more scandals waiting to come also. Okay. It could be that you might even find another scandal with Trump is connected with, you never know.
Well, it's
whatever,
happening,
right? So,
it's happening. This is going to be the eclipse of his nodal return because he's got Rahu in Taurus.
Yeah.
With the
When
sun.
the eclipse is, when the eclipse is happening on the Rahu, usually it becomes much more stronger. So I think there's a reason why Trump is still hanging out, at least astrologically. So I do think there'll be some more action that you could expect from him and so forth. Now, even if,
Yeah, what?
So it'll be interesting to see in that opinion. Though Biden has won the election, I believe Joni Petri was the one who said it's still not over yet, right? So she's still holding on to that prediction and so forth also.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. But
And
I do
what
think
yoga
eclipse
do you see here? What yoga do you see that is almost there? It's not there, but it's almost there.
Now, what do you think?
Yoga.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Kala-Sarpa yoga. As soon as Venus goes into Scorpio, we're back in Kala-Sarpa.
Yeah, that can actually strengthen Trump for sure, because he has a Kala-Sarpa yoga in his chart too, for sure. So there could be something which Trump has been keeping hidden. I do think it could be come out, and at that point, some things could actually happen also. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, voter fraud is nothing new. People are acting like it's something new, or oh my God, it couldn't possibly be. Oh my God, there's a VHS tape called Vote Fraud from the 1990s that's been floating around since then. I mean, it's really, it shouldn't be shocking, but now they're uncovering, what's the software? Dominion, I think.
Dominion. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Dominion. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How it's changing everything. And what is the Dominion? That's in Star Trek. That's the Cardassians. The Dominion is the evil ones, the Cardassians. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The thing that concerns me is, even if they do uncover the vote fraud, are they really going to give the presidency back to him? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know. And this is where I don't know what's going to happen, you guys, really, because it will be uncovered at some degree. Whether it flips the election or not, I don't know. But I mean, I don't even want to think about the riots in the streets if they give the presidency back to Trump, So, and I think that's what the next one, the solar eclipse in Jyotisha, is going to be all about. Because what is Jyotisha? The eldest one. The eldest one has authority and takes care of everybody else and feels entitled, but is also very protective. I don't know, man. I just say hunker down. Don't go anywhere until the inauguration is over.
Yeah. I think it should be fine. Definitely it is a cause for concern. You could see Mercury being with Ketu. Traveling is definitely going to have problems for sure. Upcoming this eclipse for sure. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely in general, it is recommended not to take any big decisions between the eclipses. That is one of those things that is normally recommended. So like you're deciding to switch your career or change your job or whatever, right? You don't make it between the eclipses. You try to avoid that as much as possible, because it's still said that there is some kind of element of shadow that is still lingering around until the solar eclipse is still there. So that's something you get a job offer in the beginning of lunar eclipse. Before the solar eclipse ended, it would have gone the way it came also. You'll begin to see that kind of thing. I know a cousin of mine was actually trying to rent a shop or something like that. It was around the beginning of lunar eclipse, and it was literally before, like 2 weeks went into it. It turns out there was some kind of fraud with the documents and so forth, also, that kind of thing. So you never know what kind of shadows you could be encountering. Now we are all going through our own shadows also right now. The lunar eclipse is definitely triggering a lot of depth within ourselves, switching our own communication kind of thing and so forth. Also, definitely no doubt about that. We are all keen on looking at different ways to make money also right now with the eclipse happening in Taurus also. But also at the same time, there is also this deep emotional kind of comfort zone which are all beginning to question and wonder also work with also in a deep way. That's also a very powerful thing right now as well. So yeah, we are up for some challenging times, but I do think it's a great opportunity for spiritual progress. I mean, a lot of eclipses have come and gone. So again, there's still an actual opportunity to grow yourself as a person, as a soul in your own spiritual journey in this lifetime as well during this eclipse time. So I can really recommend that. Yeah, definitely. I do think it will be very important time for us. The solar eclipse will be much more active. There's a lot more things going on in the solar eclipse. Yeah. But
Yeah.
lunar eclipse is a good time period to take it easy, do a lot of practices. Now, it's the best time period to do any kind of goddess practices, Shiva practices. I couldn't recommend that enough. Anything you do during this time, very, very powerful.
Yeah, and there's, and even if you're new to mantras, there's so many on YouTube, you guys. If you need help finding one, just let me know, because it's the thing about mantras people have to realize is that you don't have to sit there and chant all 108, especially if you're new to it. It's really good to find a video that has music to it, especially with a lot of visuals. It really sucks you in, and just watching it, doing it in your head, and then saying it out loud some of the time, and even just making the effort, the gods are like, oh, thank you. Yeah. If you do it all 108, it's like, wow, that's really good. But I think that scares people off, especially people that are new to this, because they're like, oh, it's like another chore, I have to do my mantras. Well, it should be fun. It should be something that's like listening to music, like, oh, I want to do my mantras, Yeah. So that's definitely recommended during the actual eclipse time. I remember Cosmic Insights had a whole nighttime. Well, for me, it was nighttime, long one. It was, I think, it was the last solar. So it would have been June, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really fun because you're on a Zoom call with, literally hundreds of people from all over the world. And everyone's silent and they're leading you, though, by just being with all those people. It was fun, too. So having a meditation buddy for this is definitely recommended.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, if you can it's a very powerful time for mantras and so forth. In fact, people wait after the solar eclipse is over to actually begin a new mantra for the rest of their life. There are mantras you begin after the solar eclipse, the peak is over, you start chanting mantras, which is very, very powerful. With the lunar eclipse also, it's very powerful time period to do a lot of cleansing. It's a powerful time period to transform your emotions, a lot of emotional transformation, emotional letting go. It's a powerful time period to cleanse the emotions that are no longer serving you also. Whatever house is falling in, that's very, very powerful time. I can really, really recommend that. In general, lunar eclipse is a very, very good time period just to take it easy and to welcome the energy of transformation and and actually confront your shadow selves at the emotional level. That's what you will see. It's more you'll begin to see that I feel this way very strongly. That kind of thing becomes very strong right now. The emotion will be very heightened around the eclipses, anyways. But when you take it easy, when you work on it, you'll begin to see it. It's much more help. It's actually helping you out in the long run. If you just take this time out and just work on the shadow self kind of thing going on. Now, there are many ways to do it. Mantras are very powerful ways. Journaling is very powerful ways. Letting go of actual things and actually doing the practice and actually implementing those kind of practices more powerful ways and so forth. So it's a very powerful time. If you make use of this astrologically, you have an opportunity also. No doubt about that.
Absolutely. So just be easy on yourself, you guys, and make a party of it. Find a live video of it wherever it's happening, like maybe Hawaii or something, and watch it on YouTube and just make a party of it. That's what I like to do. But the whole time, this whole 2-week period between the eclipses.
No, I mean, yeah. Well, I wouldn't normally advise to view the actual eclipse. I advise in general.
I mean, not view it in person, but on YouTube. Is that not good?
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that either. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine if you don't have any planets and so forth. But if you're going through Rahu Ketu Dasha, eclipse happening on your moon or sun, I wouldn't advise that. But then the reason I advise that is I've seen it's fine if you're old, your Rahu and Ketu is mature and so forth. but I've seen some people, I know someone who actually viewed the actual Rahu eclipse, and then literally like within 2 months, like he went out, had the eclipse viewing party and so forth. And then literally like within a month, he literally had to quit his job and so forth because his boss was becoming too bossy and so forth also. I literally seen that.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, usually when it's fine for the yogis to watch the eclipses, but you're doing mantras all day long for that. But for ordinary people, I wouldn't really recommend to like actually go out and view the eclipse. But if you're willing to do mantras for the whole day, great. Go out, view the eclipse. In fact, they say when you take a dip in any river body during the eclipse time, it's supposed to be very pure. It's as powerful as Ganga River. Any body, literally a bathtub could become Ganga River when the eclipse time is up. So many people actually take these long healing baths and chant mantras in the baths actually because of that.
So what
But,
about like the Great American Eclipse that happened like 3 years ago, and everybody, you know, set up their cameras in Tennessee and Georgia and had these
yeah,
big
so
camp
actually
outs. So
yeah,
is that
my
why we're
friend,
so screwed right now?
well, whoever watched the direct eclipse, you can see that their life would have been impacted one way or the other. That's my observation.
Wow. Well, we have 2 more coming up. The first one
So
is October 14th, 2023. The second is April 8th, 2024. They both go over the United States, starting from Texas. And, you know, I mean, it goes right over my house, the one in 2024. So, you know, we're going to be outside watching it.
Yeah, but, you know, like I said, if you're running Rahu Ketu Dasha, just be careful. If
Okay.
Rahu is interacting with any of your planets also, I wouldn't advise that much during that time because I've actually seen that.
Okay.
Literally, you can
All
count
right.
it out also.
I'll listen.
Yeah, so you can try that. In my opinion, you can try that and see, observe what happens. If you know any friends who actually attended eclipse viewing parties before, ask them what happened after the eclipse. Good chance their Rahu in the chart got activated, became too strong for them to handle. There were some problems happening with Rahu in their chart. 100%.
So there you have it. You have it here from the from the dragon's mouth.
Yeah.
The reason why the United States is so screwed is because everybody went outside and watched the eclipse 3 years ago.
Yeah, of course, you know, that's the astrologer's point of view. But I can definitely say that this is something I observed in personal charts. Of course, at a country level, it's also possible. Usually, remember now when the United States eclipse happened, immediately after there was a lot of flooding, fires, the whole earthquake.
Oh, it just all went to hell in a handbasket.
Exactly that. So it was like Trump was managing multiple disasters
Oh
in like
my God.
also, you know?
But I don't like to run. I don't like to run in fear from anything unless it's like an actual monster. So.
Yeah, it is true. You shouldn't be You shouldn't be afraid of eclipses, but consider them as opportunities. But then be intelligent about how you are dealing with the energies that are happening in the sky. Eclipse is time period when the shadows are most strong.
Right.
In fact, the only temples that are open in India during eclipse time is the temple linked with Rahu and Ketu. That's it.
Right.
No other temples are open. Because Rahu and temple, now, because of course, why would the temple be open, right? They are still honoring the Rahu energy in the Rahu way. So when you are dealing with eclipse energies, when you welcome the Rahu energy into your life, you need to be prepared to handle that. If you're not prepared to handle that, then you are welcoming Rahu in your life. You need to be prepared for that also. And so many people, ordinary people I've seen, especially you don't do yogic practices, you don't do the pranayam, you don't do the mantra chanting regularly, then you're welcoming Rahu, which is like a big beast, big monster literally in your life. Then you need to watch out for that also. That's the real thing. It's as simple as that. It's not that bad. Of course, doesn't mean that you watch an eclipse viewing party, you're screwed. Just that Rahu in your chart is being activated. What I would actually encourage is that if you are attending an eclipse viewing party, try to chant mantras as much as you can. The moment the thing is over, go take a bath, all that. But in my opinion, yeah, consider that as a spiritual opportunity. Though. Try to prepare for the eclipse, have a month-long routine going, and approach the eclipse as a spiritual opportunity to chant mantras also. That can be very helpful, no doubt about that. But again, like I said, what I've seen is that with ordinary people who don't do mantras, their life literally goes into chaos. Now, so I tell my clients who are having this Rahu Ketu interaction, Rahu Ketu dashas, just watch out for the eclipses also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
Great.
Awesome.
Great,
oh, thank you so much, Santhip. I love our talks, and you're just such the best teacher. I have to say, you know, I learned so well with you, and I know I've had such good feedback from other people. And I really appreciate you sending your knowledge out into the world. I just want to say thank you very much. Very thankful and grateful for you for this Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Namaste. Namaste.